You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Christos, and because no one should face the collective alone, I brought reinforcements. Today, Kelvin, line must be drawn here, would. Kristin, assimilate this, Strachlat. And Amy, resistance is futile, Nelson, join us. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
How are you, Amy?
What a welcome. I am loving this intro. Well done, Christos.
It's like more buttons to push, but it's more fun. So
It is.
Yeah. Kristin, darling, welcome back. How are you?
I'm here. No, I'm good. I want to say happy Yule and winter solstice to those who adhere to that. It is a very important day where the sun begins its slow return and the earth comes back to life after our descent over the last little bit and the 5 minutes of daylight we get each day. I'm done with that.
Yeah.
This would be a good day to watch Masks where, the sun chases the moon.
Very much so. Or descent. Oh gosh. Or night. Yeah,
there's a little bit more on brand with today's topic. Kelvin, how are you doing?
I'm very well, my love. What would your little mashup be between Christos, Giannalis? Did you get a little Borg quotes for yourself?
I didn't give myself one. I'm sorry.
You're
putting me on the spot. Just a reminder, Patreon patrons, remember you can watch All Good Things as an extended video edit on patreon.com/BQN. So one little bit of tidbit of news today before we jump into things is I'm sure everyone has been watching social media and it's been a little sad, but Friday, 12/19, Strange New Worlds wrapped season 5 or their final season. They're all done. How do we feel about that?
It's been really interesting to see how the actors have been, wrapping things up. Anson Mount, I really appreciate his accounts where he's taking pictures of, this is my stuntman, this is the blah, blah, blah operator, this is this guy. And he, and he's giving recognition to the support staff, I guess, for better lack of words, that's what we call it in education. The support staff who are there behind the scenes. And I find that very important and well done, Anson Mount. So I will give him praise for that. So
I particularly liked his little tour of the set with his camera. And he's like, whoops, can't show you that. That's spoiler. Can't show you that.
Yeah.
But there was also, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know the guy's name, but one of the producers did a quite long piece to camera where he was just stood on the bridge reflecting that this is the last time he's going to be stood on the bridge. And he talked about how he got into Star Trek and how it was his dream job. And he's always been Trek adjacent, working with some of the other actors from TNG, etc. And to finally get to be a producer on Strange New Worlds was his life's ambition. And he's really upset that it's coming to an end. It was so lovely. I think, oh no, I just can't get his name. I can't think to find it. Chicken and the egg now, because I want to find him on Instagram to show you. But I need his name to do that. So yeah.
I haven't been on a lot of social media over the last little bit. I've been kind of doing some self-care and purging of current events and all of that. So I haven't seen any of this. I knew it was coming. It's so sad. Strange New Worlds has been my favorite modern Trek for sure. I think all the characters embodied their roles to a degree that we haven't seen in decades. I'm not understanding the cancellation of that show. I'm not getting it, and I don't like it. So, but here we are. I mean, if we all had billions of dollars and we could support the kind of content that we want to see, but do any of you? I don't know if we pool our money, we might get close.
Haven't won the lottery yet.
No, I know me neither. I think I'm getting some scratch tickets for Christmas. So if I win anything substantial, maybe. I don't know. It really reminded me very much of like 90s Trek. And so I think the nostalgia really sat with me well for this. And Anson Mount, just his embodiment of Pike. We've never really had a lot of Pike. So I enjoyed seeing this, and I'm really bummed to know that it's wrapping up.
Yeah, while I appreciate all the posts and understand probably how they're feeling, I guess, to a certain extent, we've all been a part of things that end, right? And so we know that feeling, especially when a good thing, all good things must end, right? For us as fans, we still have 16 episodes to go, and we probably won't get to the end for another at least 18 months, maybe longer. So it's a little harder. It's not like I remember like when TNG was ending, and you were seeing like Entertainment Tonight doing clips from the set in March, and then by May we would see that finale. So there was like, we were kind of in it together kind of thing with the end of that. And it was much more, I think, everyone feeling that. And I guess it's a different way of experiencing it because we didn't have that social media then, but there was a whole lot more of television, news, entertainment news covering that stuff and getting the actors' takes on it. So I feel like there's a big disconnect is what I feel like. So, we're going to have a whole 10 episodes this year, and then we'll probably have like another year off, and then we'll get 6 more, and then I can start to feel like, oh, it's over. So
yeah, I would say though, to counter the sadness of those posts, each of the main principal cast on Starfleet Academy have been posting character profile reels over the last week. So little 10 seconds, hi, I'm Bella Shepherd, I play Cadet, blah blah. But there's been some really good images of the characters as well that haven't been in the main promos, including some great shots of the Athena as well. So that was really, really great to see, and excitement building.
I still don't know any of the actors' names other than like Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti and the big names, right? And of course, the Doctor, all of our returning people, all these new kids. I don't know the actors' names. I don't know the character names yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes for that to start becoming a thing, because it will. It happens with every show. And,
exactly.
6 months from now, we'll be spotting off their name just like nothing. And so.
I just want to harken back. I know a lot of people were very unimpressed with the photo of them lying in the field together. And I'm sorry, people need to loosen up. That was amazing. I loved the idea of a Klingon just frolicking through a meadow and then just falling in a pile with his friends. I was like, bless your soul. And people just are like, this is Star Trek. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. People
gay Klingon. I'm calling it. That Klingon's going to be gay.
You know what? I hope so. Let's bring
I hope they do that and they treat it more like Hawaiian culture does. I kind of could see that. That's just one of those things, Yeah.
It's just part. It's like the indigenous cultures in Canada with two spirit people. If they come out as being two spirit, they're male and female. It's very non-binary type identification, and they're seen as leaders and spiritual. What's the word I'm thinking of? A medicine doctor type thing. They are sought out for their wisdom in their communities as opposed to being ostracized. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, who knows? I guess let's go to.
Yeah, I mean that's just a few weeks away. So we'll be talking Academy a lot, I think, very soon.
Oh, okay. I just have a quick question. Which of the Strange New World actors do you think is going to be successful in another production? Like Sonequa Martin Green, she's now on Boston Blue. Like main,
Yeah,
she's
and she came from
going.
Walking Dead, so
Yeah.
she's just kind of jumping.
Yeah.
I see Anson Mount getting something from Paramount, although he kind of doesn't like them over. I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves the whole CBS zeitgeist because he's been pretty critical of some of the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing, and that's a good point. I would say.
Yeah, because he came from Hell on Wheels. Yeah. So I think Anson Mount might be successful somewhere else.
Yeah, I think.
And Rebecca Romaine has already been successful.
Yeah.
Right.
With X-Men. So
you almost got to take them out of it, right?
Yeah. But like Jess Bush, Christina Chong, are they gonna continue?
It depends if we get a year one, so if it continues with Paul Wesley, like is rumored as a new series, then the legacy characters will probably go into that. So I'm thinking someone who we know won't be in that is Anson Mount for obvious reasons. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think he'll go on to star in another main role.
Yeah, I think year one is not happening for a couple of reasons. First off, it doesn't make any sense. Even if you have that first year of Kirk's Enterprise that really wasn't depicted in the original series, are we only going to make one season of this show, or is this 1 year going to drag on for 7 seasons or 5 seasons? And secondly, so they wrapped Friday. So the choice is you either strike the sets, which is to destroy them, or you put them into storage, or you leave them standing up and start basically, hey, in 6 months, we're coming back to film this year one show. And nothing's been announced, so studio space is so lucrative, right? So they either didn't be smart and put those sets into storage, or they need to, like I said, they get striked, which they destroy them, which is like blasphemy, or the set,
Well, there might be won't there potentially be the opportunity? No, because this is way in the future. I was like, couldn't they repurpose some of them for Academy? But I don't think the technology would be the same. So maybe not. I don't know. Because we always know that stuff is repurposed. So,
yeah.
Sorry, would you say, Christos? I missed it.
The Athena's Bridge in Academy is a redress of Discovery's bridge.
They saved
that and they clean, so.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, sets are expensive, so it helps. It helps production to save big money.
Yeah.
That's why they spent all the money for season 3 of Picard on the rebuilding of the Enterprise D bridge. So much money was spent on that.
And it was worth every penny.
Exactly. So we did kind of hint at today's topic. Kelvin, would you like to introduce our topic?
I would love to. We are continuing with our evolution of a species, and we're on part 4. And speaking of recycle, we're going to be using the most recycled aliens in all of Star Trek. We're talking the Borg today in all of their glory, from the first terrifying appearance in The Next Generation through First Contact, Voyager, and into Picard.
We're going to break this into 4 topics, audience. We're going to, as Kelvin just said, so we're going to take topic 1 and discuss the Borg in The Next Generation. So the topic here is the Borg as cosmic horror, because we didn't know a whole lot about the Borg, which was by design, nor did they tell us a lot about the Borg in TNG. Who here can remember their first exposure to the Borg? This is my first Borg episode. I don't know who these guys are. Does any of us remember that? First impressions?
I don't think I remember seeing Q-Who as my first encounter with the Borg. A lot of early TNG was watched out of sequence for me because I would get it pirated. Oh God, am I allowed to say that? I would acquire it through unofficial means. I definitely remember watching Best of Both Worlds, part 1 for the first time, and then the agonizing long wait. So the concept of the Borg being a step up from any villain we've ever seen, and the terrifying aspect was real. and it was just such a next level, to next generation of, wow, they're getting serious now. This is a big baddie.
Yeah, I, like you, Kelvin, saw things out of order, but I remember seeing Q Who, and it took me a long time to get to even like Q because of how terrifying the Borg were. And so to have that so impacted on me, like it's the same thing with Cisco when he like didn't like Picard, blaming Picard because he was the cutest. You can't, so like Cisco has been on the, on the outs with me for a while, and same with Q for this exact same reason. They are Borg related. So wow, that was interesting. I just learned something about myself.
As is the theme, I too watched everything out of order because I would just put on random VHS tapes that had recorded episodes of TNG that I would just be like, I don't know where this goes. I don't even think I knew what a TV season was for a really long time in my life. That's embarrassing to say. I think Best of Both Worlds was probably my very first memorable thing. And again, the agony that we were in for that summer, waiting to see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like to say that first, before I go back, and that first two-parter was like I remember it being like when TNG got good. I mean, it's all of season 3 is good, but I think it kind of crossed over into the zeitgeist of everybody, pop culture of like everybody, TNG was a must-watch show when it first ran by the time season 4 was on. Everybody, there were, over 10 million viewers a week. It was huge. So like in that Best of Both Worlds, I think is what kind of put that into that category. Go ahead, Amy.
Well, and I love how TNG, this is sort of their second chance of creating, as you say, the cosmic horror alien. Because we know it was going to be the Ferengi, but look at the difference in how those two species were introduced. Like the coldness, the unrelatable, the not communicating. I mean, they tried it with the Ferengi, but it was just so much more successful this go around where this cosmic horror continues. Yeah.
So like my first, I think it was Q Who, and here's why. Because I remember distinctly the part where the Borg cube cuts out that circle out of the saucer section. And first off, amazing special effects for 1989 that we got to see that happen. But I was like, I don't know how old I was, 11, maybe 12, but it was like, holy crap, they're butchering the ship. Like that was like a moment. And then the fact that Picard has to ask for Q's help to get out of it, that's kind of like desperation, right there, asking for Q to and telling Q he was right. So I think that was my oh crap moment. But of course, they were so much more evolved by the time we saw them in Best of Both Worlds, and as far as I think what they had planned for it. How do we feel about that phrase, resistance is futile? I mean, that was eerie, right? It's not necessarily threat, right? It's more like, no, this is who we are. This is our ideology.
I would really like to chime in here with my geek moment, if you would allow me. So there is a German sociologist named Max Weber, and he coined the term the iron cage of bureaucracy. And I remember studying this in like 2001, 2002 when I was in university and thinking to myself, this sounds an awful lot like the Borg. And even the Borg cube looks like an iron cage. And as you're reading through sort of how he defines this, this term of society going into being obsessed with efficiency, and as we're all pulled into this this cage, it is very difficult to escape because you are so replaceable and whatnot. So I read this. The iron cage is technically ordered, rigid, and a dehumanized society. It is one set of rules and laws that we are all subjected and must adhere to. It puts us, this iron cage limits individual human freedom and potential instead of a technological utopia that should set us free. It is a way of institution. It's a way of the institution where we do not have choice anymore. Once capitalism came about, it was like a machine that you were being pulled into without an alternative options. It literally is the idea of the Borg. And I just love that whether or not this was on purpose or just accidental, how many classic political and sociological ideas were replicated so well in the Trek universe. I think that's one reason why I like it so much. But when I read about that, I was like, it's true, where the drones in the cube, in the collective, they didn't have a choice. They were pulled in. They were given an employee number instead of a name. And their ability to escape was very difficult, because even now, like, I technically work in a bureaucracy because I work for the province, the government. And it is hard sometimes to be seen as a person and to hold on to that individuality. But escaping it means what? Poverty, not having a job. So sometimes resistance is very futile and difficult unless you're willing to really fight and really take risks, which sometimes I'm just too lazy.
Well, I think resistance would be stupid because you'd lose your job.
Yeah.
So, you know, every organization has rules, codes of conduct, employee handbooks. It's just, that's the norm. As you were saying all that, Kristin, I was like, oh my God, I am literally the devil incarnate to Kristin, because my role at work is I'm the quality manager now, and I have to calibrate the way all of our 75 safety auditors perform so that everybody does things in the same way. So if you're checking training records, make sure everybody checks the same number. If you're looking at expiration dates on food, make sure you choose the same amount of products to look at. Otherwise, the customers complain that that auditor in Scotland is more overzealous than the one in London. So it's really important from a service delivery point of view. But I am literally assimilating all of my staff.
I think Kelvin just coined the new phrase, resistance is stupid. Get that on a t-shirt for SPLD.
Yeah. Well, I will just say, sorry, before we move on from resistance is futile, I especially love the fact that because it was Patrick Stewart that first said it in Best of Both Worlds, the UK pronunciation of the phrase stuck. So when Jerry Ryan first said resistance is futile a few times, it was like really jarring. And they quickly must have given it a quick slap and say, it's futile, love.
Yes. There's an I in there, my love. Like Jerry Ryan can do no wrong in my eyes, but there is an I.
Yeah. I Borg.
Resistance is futile.
See, no, that's wrong.
I think that.
But I also don't like it when people think.
Never play that again, Christos.
So. Resistance is futile.
Never play that again. It's now loaded into our queue, so I can't play it again. So, Kristin, you touched on a little bit there of identity loss. So, you know, Amy, so identity loss or death, what is worse?
I mean, it gets so explored in Best of Both Worlds and First Contact with Picard. And it's like, you know, with Best of Both Worlds, the entire crew goes to save him because we can bring him back. We can get his identity back. And then you've got him turning around in First Contact and saying, if you come across any one of our crew, kill them now. And it's like, wait a minute, where is that line of giving up your identity? Like, I cannot imagine having no control. And, you know, you see that when Picard and the single tear, I mean, it's his identity that he doesn't want to lose, his conscious, his who he is. And then to go and serve someone else's purpose, and That's got to be worse.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, kill me now. But at what point do you lose your identity? And that's the question, Picard. Don't go shooting your crew. What if they can do something?
Yeah.
Very good point. Kelvin? Okay.
There's a, well, first of all, happy Christmas. This episode is coming out on Christmas Day, and special mention to anyone who is having to endure time with family that doesn't particularly enjoy that. And, you know, yes, I'm joking, but actually there's a little bit of realness here that if I go home to my parents, I lose my identity. All of the sense of self and who I am that I have gained since aged 18 when I left there, I suddenly revert to being a very subservient teenager with opinions that I keep to myself, don't want to cause an argument, and I'm in someone else's world. So that's, to me, a little bit like the Borg of I am then just a drone in the family and I don't get to be me. So I know a lot of people will be going through that pain this week, actually. So if you're enjoying this podcast as a little bit of a release from family duties, all power to you.
Yes, and you are not alone. Yeah.
Kelvin, I'm still dealing with that as a 42-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Where I hide my identity and just enter into the assimilated world that both sets of my parents expect of me. So I feel your pain, and I think this is definitely, I think we love all this. This is getting really deep real fast. I think that's one reason why we are pulled into this community, because we are not assimilated. We are celebrated in infinite diversity, right?
Well,
so I think that is that's why this is such a safe place for so many people, because we can, but no, Christmas is it's all shiny and everything on the outside.
Yeah.
Christmas
the
is
iron cage of Christmas.
Wrapping up one more idea here of the TNG's use of the Borg. It was also the first time I think we got like I would call it a part 3 episode where we dealt with what happened. Like we had both Worlds 1 and 2. Picard is assimilated into Locutus, and Riker and all of them go and get him back, and Beverly puts him back physically to normal. But then he has to deal with the PTSD and the trauma, and they actually have a whole episode called Family. And it was the second episode of season 4, which is not technically a Borg episode, but it is, because we deal with Picard trying to find his humanity again. And I think that showed a lot of growth in the show itself, because it was like, okay, now we're just not going to be the show of the week, clip adventure of the week, right? We're actually going to say, like, some of the things that happened in this show, have consequences. Amy, I really thought that part you brought up about first contact, it really does kind of contradict Family, that was a good point.
I would like to say something though. Every time we have seen any Borg de-assimilate, the trauma of being de-assimilated is almost as intense of the trauma of being assimilated. We saw it with Picard, we saw it with 7 of 9, we saw it with the group of 3 that 7 kind of effed over. We saw it with the group that Chakotay comes in contact with. And I wonder if during first contact, Picard's note to just shoot anybody was because he knows how hard it will be for them to come back. And maybe there is something where death is actually the kinder route than de-assimilation.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very dark, but we also see the fact that Picard was dealing with the aftermath of that process decades after it happened. And I just wonder if he thought that I wouldn't wish that on anybody else.
Right.
So,
I have some thoughts on that, but it really, as we segue here in a minute to first contact. So just real quickly, if you count Family, the Borg appeared 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, if you count two-parters, as 2 parts in TNG. is everyone's favorite Best of Both Worlds Part 1, or does anybody else here have another episode that they think is that they enjoy more?
Did anyone else have a total crush on Hugh?
Yeah, we need to talk about Iborg.
Iborg.
Yeah, I think Iborg is a strong contender.
I had the biggest crush on Hugh. Like I was thirsty for some Hugh in my life.
Jonathan Del Arco.
Mm-hmm.
Amy?
Yeah, what I love if we're just looking at the evolution of the Borg in TNG, like Iborg teaches us something, because the Borg were so scary because of we were talking about before, like the mystery, how silent they were. They said like 3 things, you will be assimilated, like very, very silent. They weren't chatty Cathy. And so they were extremely scary. And it's when we get Hugh, where we look at an individual, it's teaching us as a society, how do we overcome viewing an entire race, whatever, fill in the blank of population. How do we overcome being scared of them? It's getting to know one person. So you're removing the stereotypes of, oh, I thought all Borg were like this, and now I know someone who is not. And oh, maybe not all Borg are like this. This teaching us of get to know one person that's outside of your collective, you might be surprised. And I just find that very important for Iborg and Hugh.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the conversation from last week's episode that Pike has with Kirk. And it's like, you have more in common with your enemy than you realize. And you need to, and we finally start to see that here and see that, well, if you take away their signals and whatnot, their individuality starts to reassert itself. And, it's, and there's consequences for the Iborg episode, which is also what I like. It comes back again in Descent.
Yeah,
like it literally, so there's that, for a show that wasn't supposed to be serialized, there's that continuity through the Borg storyline that was continuing.
One of my very, very best friends in elementary school had recently moved to Canada from Germany. And it was right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Like, she actually sat on her dad's shoulders and watched the Berlin Wall fall.
Wow, that's so cool.
Very cool. But I remember her coming over and nobody giving her a chance because she was German. And so much had been spread about German people. We were only at that point 50 years out from World War II. It was still very raw. A lot of survivors were still speaking out and just starting to speak out. And I felt for her and her family because they were lovely. They were just a regular family just trying to make a go of it in Canada. And she had this amazing history, this amazing past, and she was just starting to learn English. And, me being an outcast as well, we kind of connected over that. But Amy, you're so right that when we get to know somebody, it really starts to just chip away at any sort of preconceived notions that we have of them. And we're still friends today, like 35 years later. And it's because she was a nice person. I don't care where
So can I ask, and specifically to Christos and Kelvin being gay, with one person, I know some people are like, I'm the ambassador for all the, like if you go in and like, I'm trying to think, who was my first gay person that I knew? Let's just say it's Christos. Like, you were my ambassador to all gay people because I didn't know any, right? Like, and I've heard people say like, I'm not the representative, stop putting me out there. But when you are a first to someone, you really are that ambassador. How do you feel about that? And have you felt that pressure?
Oh yeah. Every day at work. I am like, I work in a kind of a very male-driven industry, very butch, very macho, and there aren't a lot of gay people. And I felt like, and sometimes I am the only gay person at my company. I'm sure I'm not, but I'm the one who's high profile and out there. And I have been told by many people through my career, you were my first true gay person I got to know and got to really chance to see that you're just a regular guy, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I know I'm not as out there in some ways, and with, wearing my sexuality on my sleeve, like some people do, and good for them. But, I do assimilate quite a bit at work. In some ways I have found myself toning myself down. But to the same extent, though, I am a lot of people's, first, at least I was. I think it's so much. I've been at my company over 25 years, so I think things have changed over time. So maybe I'm not as everyone's first anymore, but I was some people's, like, at least peek onto the other side that, we're just regular people. Kelvin, how about you?
I think it gets more complex as the years have gone on, because stereotypes in any society or minority are quite dangerous. So when people look at me and assume that I am the template for all gays, it's just absolutely not the case. But maybe a little different to what you just said, Christos, in that kind of reminding people that we are just a regular person. I actually go out of my way to remind people of, it's more reminders of diversity rather than reminders of equality. So when people say, oh, you're in a relationship with a man, but other than that, you're just the same as everyone else, I say, excuse me, no, we're a culture. We have a lot of identity. And with the way we view things like this is different to how you do. So I educate on my understanding of gay culture, which is completely different to that of a 21-year-old gay guy or a 65-year-old gay guy. So I like to make people think a little bit of, oh, I never thought of it like that. At work, when all of the men in the suits are talking constantly about football, I get quite triggered by this, because it really reminds me that I'm different than all of the other guys, because I don't enjoy sports and football. So whereas you're just monopolizing all of the conversation about that, just know it's making me feel a little uncomfortable.
Well,
and I'm not saying don't do that, but I want you to know that's how it affects me.
Yeah. So I can tie this back to the Borg so well, because it is very much like, I call it the good old boys club, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we want to be around people who look like us, who talk like us, who speak like us, who have 2.5 kids and a wife at home and blah, 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 blah. That very much is like assimilation into a collective, right? And it's, and it's what people, this idea of what is quote unquote normal, and everyone should be like that, is, and I think all four of us here, in very different, in our own respects, have like kind of balked at that. Here, none of us have kids, right? And none of us are.
Well, you know what they should do? They should add our biological distinctiveness to their own.
Right. And can we analyze that? Like, that in and of itself is good. If I were to take the best of every culture and use it, like, that's how we're going to be stronger, and get rid of the, oh yeah, that doesn't work. This hatred that you have, like, bring in the best of diversity. That's where the power is.
Well, and I also kind of want to really touch on the concept of biological diversity, because that is when you get the strongest and healthiest of the species. That is why things like inbred families, royal families, were so sick.
Yeah.
And that's why there are like purebred dogs. There are so many physical issues with them. Like, stop breeding dogs with their siblings. Are you kidding me? The healthiest dogs out there are the ones who are just the mutts. So that's very much what I saw with the biological distinctiveness was this is our way of weeding out genetic issues. And as somebody who works in the disability world, the number of chromosomal abnormalities that exist, it is amazing that anyone is born without these types of physical disabilities. There's so many. And so just the more options in the pool, the better quality you're going to get. So that is actually probably the one thing I saw about them was like, no, you're right though. The more
anyone going to watch the King's speech on Christmas Day now after this, Kristin, is going to be looking at King Charles a little bit differently now.
I didn't mean to be rude with inbred, but I just couldn't think of another word in my
selective breeding.
Sure.
Well, I see we're all awake this morning, and this is what I love about our conversations, right?
And also, Kelvin, if you ever want to like be one of the guys at work, talk about heavy metal and talk about Judas Priest and talk about Rob Halford and how he's just this badass metal singer and gay as the day is long.
Okay. I'd have to assimilate that myself first.
Yeah. I'm like, who are these people?
He came out. He came out in 98 and everyone was like, I'm sorry, the lead singer of Judas Priest is gay. And he's like, I've been wearing assless chaps for decades. But he's still seen as a man's man. Right? And when people suddenly realize that he's gay, they're like, but he's just, that's part of who he is. That's part of what's made him so amazing and such a big figure.
And I think the bigger piece to that is, are you not going to listen to Judas Priest anymore because you love that band? But now that you have this fact that triggers your prejudice, are you willing to say, I don't like that anymore?
And it's something that like, I don't like you now.
So TNG and the Borg, everyone, that is a lot. And we haven't even hit the other three topics. So next up, kind of sticking with TNG, right? Because topic 2 is going to be First Contact. And its continuation of our TNG cruise adventures with the Borg. So I'm calling this First Contact, the Borg Get a Face.
We've made too many compromises already. Too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther. I will make them pay for what they've done.
You guys, goosebumps. Goosebumps
right?
Everywhere right now.
So, a week or two back, I was rewatching the end of DS9, the 9-10 episode finale. And when Quark said some of these lines, I was like, it never clicked on me that Quark is doing.
See, that's why I was smiling, because when I hear that, I think of Quark doing it, and it's a piss take. So it doesn't really have the resonance with me anymore, because they made fun out of themselves.
Yeah, I loved that they can be so meta with themselves. Just like take one of the strongest lines from First Contact and then go to that. So Star Trek First Contact was, quite the big movie, right? It was probably, it's widely considered the best of the TNG films. Amy might be the one who has a little bit of a line about that. But it was also like the big crossover movie, right? Lots of people went and saw it. It was like the super well-made action horror flick. And so I couldn't immediately think of what Amy was talking about with Picard's shift toward his view, toward the crewmates that were getting assimilated. And was that because they were really trying to make Picard more into an action hero? And so action heroes have guns and they kill people. Kelvin, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack with First Contact. Obviously, I adore First Contact. It is my favorite Star Trek film, like a lot of people. But we're talking evolution. And just think of how much evolution the Borg got in First Contact. There's the physical appearance of the makeup and the design was hugely different to what we saw in TNG. So that's your evolution, first of all. You're absolutely right with the Picard action hero. They were supposed to switch the roles. So Riker was supposed to be the one on Enterprise fighting the Borg, and Picard was supposed to be down with Zefram Cochrane. But it wasn't very leading man. You know, they didn't want Picard in his usual diplomacy, in convincing Cochrane it's the right thing to do to have the flight, and Riker being his usual self on the action hero stuff. So that was very symbolic of this is a movie and he's the main guy. But the introduction of the Borg Queen as an evolution, I don't know how deliberate that was to this is what we want to do with the Borg, or whether the studio just said we're not comfortable having the villain of the movie as this faceless collective that we had in TNG. Did they say you need to cast a baddie? You need a Khan. You need a General Chang. There needs to be a face.
I think it helps to make the Borg almost more accessible by having that central person. And I think it makes sense too. There has to be a nexus from where all of their direction and everything comes from, right? They couldn't just poof out of nowhere. There had to have been someone who was like, I'm gonna start assimilating people, and that was the Queen. So I think it actually made more sense to the etymology of the Borg. I think I used that word right. To bring this into their lore, that this person has been behind the scenes this entire time, and we are now just seeing it. I think she made the Borg just so much more of almost a scary race, because not only was it a face, but it was a woman. And I don't think people were super comfortable seeing a woman in a role of leading a race that was so destructive, right? It's very counter to how women were seen, but it's in the potential of everybody, despite their sexuality or gender or whatnot, that we all have the capacity to do bad. I think it was very poignant.
With the introduction of the Borg Queen, is that just, whether it was studio or not, I mean, think about a collective, a bunch of drones. And let's take our little group. Like, we have actions, we have goals within our group. We want to see each other. So was there a leader in our group? How long could we live as a collective that has goals, that wants to do good? How long can we stay drones and accomplish that? Or is just a truth that there will be leaders, doesn't have, or one leader, that from the drones, because we have this desire to, in our group, travel together, who's going to be the leader to get us there? Because if we wouldn't have organized, Kelvin, me, I don't know that the vacation would have happened. And it took a lot of people saying their input, but there were leaders to get us going. And so the Queen, I think, is an essential part of how we analyze society and who we choose, us drones, as our leader. It says who we are.
Well, Amy, you're our queen. Right? Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That vacation would not have happened if it hadn't been for you. Bringing all of us little drones together and, you know, organizing us in a way that we could then function well from, right? And it's just a fact of life. Everybody, when you're in groups, everybody starts to look for somebody who is going to do that. And, you know, again, in the idea of being in a bureaucracy, in the iron cage, people were assigned to different roles depending on their existing skill set. So your skill set is very much organization, administration, leadership, right? And we saw that come out. So Yeah.
So I think it's a good evolution for the Borg to get a face, because that's what happens in society.
Right. And I love that they do some minor retconning, like Picard says, "Oh, you were always there." Like they do like kind of backstory that into Best of Both Worlds when he was Locutus. And of course, like paralleling just like, an ant colony, right? There's always the queen ant, and that's where that all comes from. And the other ants are just drones and following along. And we are a society of leaders and followers. And so I think that part of it, I get it. And the very Hollywood, yes, very mathematical. You have to have a villain. You have to have somebody to focus on. What do we feel about the sexualization of the Borg Queen? Because she wasn't just their leader. She was like horror sexy, seducing Data. And,
I like it in that every Borg Queen is a little different that we've seen. And I know we're sticking with First Contact, but I think Alice Krieg's representation of the Borg Queen is the sexy Borg Queen, the seductress with the evil, manipulative intent. Whereas Susanna Thompson was just cold evil. Annie Wershing was, to me, the camp comedy Borg Queen. And then you've got Agnes as the benefactor, the good Borg Queen. So I like the seductress because it's Alice and that's what we know and love her for. I'm just on the fence altogether with, would I have liked to see the Borg remain as this complete homogenous society without that central person? I think it would have taken them in a completely different direction. And I don't know how much more they would have had in them without the Borg Queen. So I'm not making a mistake. I just would have liked to see a bit more of it before we got to the Queen.
I liked the fact that they allowed the Borg Queen to be sexual because, again, women's sexuality has always been guarded. It has always been tabooed by the patriarchy. And I like the fact that not only is this woman a leader of a quite violent group, but she owns her sexual urges. And I think that she counters so many stereotypes that women have had to absorb, but she does it in a way where I'm like, I don't completely hate you. You're doing this really well.
But do they go into these gender stereotypes of women being evil seductresses? And, and is it like continuing that stereotype that women use their wiles to seduce men, and they can't be trusted and they're evil, and especially being the villainous, not
I think in this scenario, and you are correct, Christos, that happens, but with who's the board? Annie
Wershing.
Okay, Wershing, she's the one the First Contact Queen.
No. Alice Krieg.
Alice Krieg, yeah. So what I love that Alice Krieg did was, it was who she was, and it wasn't because of others. And that ownership of her sexuality, I felt, was so powerful and so good to see. First, and that's just completely her, the actor. Like that, I'm sure, was not written. She owned it. I didn't feel like used it. I see what you're saying, Christos, but I don't read it that way. And so I think it's up to how the woman views it, or how people view how they're going to take it. Yeah.
So for the record, I didn't view it that way, but I was very curious to ask two women what they thought of that.
Yeah.
I would like to give a shout out to Annie Wershing and the fact that next month is already going to be the 3rd anniversary of her passing.
Oh.
So I hope wherever she is in the next emanation, she's in less pain than she was on Earth. And if you want to see her in an amazing role, go watch her in The Rookie. She plays a female serial killer. Chilling. chilling. Her alongside Nathan Fillion is pure art. So I'm just going to put that out there. It's Firefly and Star Trek together. So good. Go watch it.
So First Contact introduces another character, Lily Sloan.
You broke your little ships.
Played by Alfre Woodard. And I was thinking about her when Amy was talking about Picard kind of shifting and killing his crew members, because she's the one that kind of calls him out on it and says, you didn't even blink before you shot so-and-so, you know. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Got lynched.
So how do we feel about, like, I felt like it was great to have, I like the character and whatnot, but did she maybe take the place of what screen time would be other members of our crew? I mean, she played a very kind of like that
Guinan.
I was going to say Guinan, yeah. Type character.
I guess you need that person in the story who is unfamiliar with the future, with Starfleet, so that Picard's dialogue can be quite explanatory. And then that is the representation to the audience that the studio were wanting to go and watch a Star Trek film who didn't know about Star Trek. So it was ticking that box by having Lily as the audience member.
The fish out of water.
Yeah. So they do that a lot, and it's constant with Doctor Who as well. That's what they do with the companion. Every time they refresh Doctor Who, they explain it all again. But I just think it's interesting with Lily, and I always feel so sorry for Lily that she has been erased from history. And it's like, if you're ever second in command or number two, and the top dog always gets the praise and the recognition, you know, for every Zefram Cochrane reference in all of Star Trek, in the history books, in everything, poor Lily is done so dirty. I hate it.
I know.
I like Lily in the fact that, as you said, Kelvin, like, we don't know. And she called. Okay. I like Lily because, like, when she's on the scene and the bridge and Picard's making the order and Beverly's like, all right, let's do it. This is what the man ordered. And she's like, are you crazy? What is going on? Let me go talk to him. It's like, no, we follow orders here. So she sort of breaks that. But what I love is that you can relate to someone who is this stranger and talk. But sometimes it's easier to just tell a stranger and get over with it. I don't know. There's some kind of processing going on with Picard that is going to be unique to Lily because she is a stranger.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. I feel like she's not part of his crew. She's not, being insubordinate by questioning them and whatnot. But it also does remind us that sometimes we have to question our leaders, because sometimes they are going into that, Moby Dick mode, right? Captain Ahab. And
also,
I feel like, go ahead, Kristin. I
think the setting that we find Lily in is post-World War, right? They're in a very unique political, social, economic setting that none of us have ever really experienced that level of fallout. So, we don't know what her relationship with leadership is. It's probably not great because a lot of them took them into war. So she probably has even more hate for anything that is considered military, anything that is considered hierarchy.
That's a good point.
And it's about humans needing to come together to rebuild something. And now she's seeing Picard just off people and stuff. And she's like, I've just been through this. I have no place for this in my life. We try to protect and save our people, very much like Kira. She was all about saving the Bajorans, and she didn't just shoot them. But I digress. But I think where Lily was coming from was, we need to band together against our enemies, because that's what got us through this first battle.
I agree. She probably has that, 5 or 6 people got us into this, decades-long mess of the planet's in. And probably because a number two did not question an order or push back or just kind of let things happen, kind of abdicated the responsibility. Yep, I was just doing my job. Anything else about First Contact you guys want to discuss? Okay.
They gave us the evolution of the Borg, that we got the green plasma discs as well that lived on all throughout every time we see the Borg alcoves now. So much from First Contact. They introduced the concept of the nanoprobes as well, so the injection tubules, the specifics of assimilation. The fact that they touch you, it was made them quite zombie-like in that way. So there's a huge amount of evolution that we got to enjoy then in Voyager and everything else that came afterwards because of First Contact. So they did a good job.
Michael Westmore, I believe, did the makeup and whatnot on First Contact, and he did. It took it from TV to movie, right? Made it cinematic, and it really just. Like I said, I remember seeing First Contact, be like, "Holy crap, this is this is big."
And I'm just going to give a shout out to the Star Trek experience that used to be in Las Vegas after First Contact. The actors who were in the Borg, I was literally Lily Sloan seeing them for the first time. I was jumping and they were in character. They were the Borg. I have experienced the Borg. I was not assimilated, but oh my gosh, huge shout out. And it was pretty darn cool. It was better than the Klingon ones.
Was that the 4D one?
4D, exactly.
Where you're sitting in the chair and all of a sudden the chair starts poking you?
Yeah, it's the fourth. That's
4D. Well, that's the reason Justin and I took our honeymoon to Vegas. I needed to see the Star Trek experience because it was shutting down in September of 2008. And we were married late August 2008. And I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah. That 4D thing came later. It wasn't there in the beginning. There was a secondary attraction that was added later, but
because the Klingon was the first one.
Yes, and then they were both really good.
They were.
I enjoyed them for different reasons. That was my first time going on the bridge of the Enterprise D. I know we got to do it last year or earlier this year at FanFest nights, but that was pretty cool. So I think overall, First Contact, I mean, it's great. Obviously, we all agree it's top 3 movies probably for all of us. Kelvin said it's his favorite. It definitely, I think it made the Borg more cinematic. It made it, but what it took away was a lot of the mystery of the Borg. It made them less unknowable, because now we're starting to put a face to the Borg and starting to put some lore to it and whatnot. But it did kind of take away some of that mysteriousness that was part of the appeal to the Borg, was just kind of not knowing, what's motivating them.
But you can only stay with a faceless enemy for so long before you need something. Even Jason Voorhees, we eventually see his face. I found it made it more digestible as a consumer of this media to now be able to have that face. So while it did, take away a bit of the mystery, I don't mind that.
Yeah. Oh, I don't either. I love First Contact, and I think it brought Star Trek back up a little bit, I felt like, because I think Generations was kind of a miss in some ways, and people like it, but there's a lot of people who don't like it. It was considered one of the odd movies for a while there. It's, I know we like it, but it's definitely, it definitely had its flaws, and it was a rushed property, whereas like First Contact is like, that Christmas of '96, I think it was when it came out. It's a Christmas movie. There you go. It was like Star Trek is back and TNG saves the day, and it's good. And okay, so listeners, I know we introduced this show a little bit differently, but some of you are probably watching how long this podcast has been running, and we've decided to put a pin in it and break this into 2 parts. So you have just experienced the Borg Part 1 with TNG and First Contact. And in a very future episode, not too far off, we'll get this in here very soon, maybe within the next month, we will do part 2 of the Borg, where we will cover the Borg in Star Trek Voyager and Picard. But I'm still going to pull us back here and bring us back to what we do at the end of every episode of our series. For our final thoughts here, what species do you enjoy more? This is our 4th trip down the species pool. The first one we did was the Andorians. We did Q. We've done the Ferengi. And we've done now half of the Borg. Which species do you enjoy more? Kristin?
As an enemy and a foe to the Federation, the Borg, 100%. As for their evolution throughout the entirety of Trek, I will always have to give it to my Ferengis.
Wow, did not see that coming.
I think, well, when you look at how they were introduced in TNG to how things were wrapped up at the end of DS9, they went through a complete and total social, political, economic restructuring. They moved from a true blue capitalist neoliberal society through to more of a socialist democracy where rights were granted, and it was fantastic to see what the writers did with the Ferengi, which is why I was also very honored to have hosted the Ferengi episode. But they were never going to be a foe. They were never going to be a decent adversary from moment 1 in season 1 of TNG. No. The Borg, though, they were probably one of the best enemies next to the Cardassians to the Federation.
I will follow that because over on Union Federation, if you would like to go hear me over on that podcast, we just covered our Q fan set series and watched all the Q episodes and how the Q end up in Voyager with the Civil War, their restructuring. I mean, it's very, you could say that as well with the Q. But yeah, the Borg, I feel, go through much more evolution, but in part because we have so much more content with them.
True. Kelvin?
I'm on a very similar thread to Kristin here of no one would say, the Ferengi are a better, in inverted commas, villain than the Borg. But this series, we're talking about the evolution of a species. And we are considering, or we have considered in today's episode, the leap from TNG to First Contact. And then in our Ferengi episode, we looked at the Ferengi's leap from the TNG to DS9 and then what DS9 did with them. So that DS9 did more with the Ferengi during its series. So I think that was a better evolution. And I really enjoyed our conversations in that episode. I think it was quite deep and quite layered. So I would invite people to go back and listen to that if they haven't done already. So with that being said, I'm going to give it to the Ferengi as my answer. I am just going to say as well, if this is a 2-parter, does this mean that this is 1 of 2 and the next will be 2 of 2 for a little designation?
I love Borg designations. You know that. I'm 2 of 5. I always say that.
No, this would be 4 of 1 and then 4 of 2 because we're part 4.
Oh, he's talking about like the Borg, just the Borg being split into 2 episodes, I think.
I know.
She's going full
all the evolution episodes.
Yes.
Everyone's talking numbers here. I love it. I think for me, I enjoy the Borg. I'm going to save some of my bigger comments about the Borg overall for, I think, the part 2 of this.
Right.
But the Andorians, you have to be a huge Enterprise fan to be like all about the Andorians because that's where we've spent the most time with Andorians. Q, I like Q to a certain extent, but just like Picard, he gets on my nerves. And as a species, yeah. So I'm probably going to give it to the Ferengi, having just watched so much DS9 because I really enjoyed it.
You guys, I don't think any of you know how much it means to me that the Ferengi are being seen with such kind eyes right now, because I think that they were seen as such a like comedy relief. But when you start to tease things out, they're very poignant, and I didn't expect this. Makes me want to go watch DS9 after this.
That's not a bad way to spend a Sunday, by the way. Listeners, give us your thoughts. Which species do you prefer? The Borg, the Ferengi, the Andorians, or the Q?
Calling all audiophiles and Trekkies. Prepare to boldly go where no podcast listener has gone before with the diverse soundscapes of BQN. We're not just a network, we're a universe of exploration, entertainment, and deep dives into the topics you love. Here's your star map to the sonic adventures awaiting you. Charting the Star Trek cosmos, we have all good things. Embark on a comprehensive journey through the entire Star Trek universe with insightful crew of Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. From classic to current, they cover it all. Galaxy Class, Engage. Stephen and Stefan pilots this deep space mission, meticulously covering all aspects of Star Trek The Next Generation. Infinite Diversity. Stay current with the newest Star Trek frontiers alongside Chrissy and Thad. Union Federation. Whether your allegiances lies with Starfleet or the Planetary Union, Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley offer a unified front discussing both current Star Trek and the truly Trek at heart, the Orville. Crack open that book with Peter and the Trek Book Club podcast. Delve into the rich tapestry of Star Trek's beta canon. What's the T-Bab? Christos spills the latest Trek news and fandom insights with an essential LGBTQIA+ perspective, complete with engaging guest interviews. Our visual voyages that you can find on YouTube as well as a podcast, our Trexperts quiz. Think you're a Starfleet Academy graduate? Test your knowledge with Davey and MC's challenging Star Trek quiz show. And the View Screen. Tune in live on Sundays for your dose of Trek-inspired talk show. Kelvin and Amy host new 8-week seasons each spring and fall. Beyond the final frontier, we have Bargain Bin Gamer. Davey and Mitch, your self-proclaimed gamer guides, lead you to digital treasures, unearthing and reviewing the most affordable video game gems. Cinema Z. Grab your metaphorical popcorn for Mark and Matt's cinematic deep dives, unearthing overlooked films that demand your attention. History with the Zalogis. In order to never repeat it, tune in as Chrissy and Jason deliver bite-sized snippets of historical events from around the globe. And transformational journeys. Lex Rosa explores what it means to embrace authenticity in the face of societal expectations. To unlock deeper levels of engagement, try our patron perks. The Hive Mind is where you can join our random script readings, live reaction shows, and roundtable discussions. And check out our back catalog of It's Green, a verdant cornucopia of topics offering diverse and engaging conversations, and Amy's Math Moments. Discover the subtle and not so subtle mathematical wonders woven into the fabric of Star Trek. You can stay connected to our ever-expanding galaxy of content by following at BQN Podcasts on Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Discord. We appreciate you choosing BQN to fill your auditory needs. Thank you for listening. Assimilate the audio.
Well, thank you for that, Amy. It was just like we had you here, but you are still here. So, Amy, I'll throw it back to you again. Why don't you introduce the topic for next week's episode?
All right, you guys. Next week, we are going to have our host pick. This is part 5. And we are going to somehow find 5 episodes, our top episodes for 2026. And listeners, we want you to do the same and share it with us. So start thinking. It's a good end of the year little challenge for you.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's show, and there are many ways you can do this. You can join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. You can join our Discord server, or you can follow the network on Blue Sky and Instagram at BQN Podcast to continue the discussion there. You can find the links and the invite code in the show notes.
So, Amy, where can people find you when you're not trying to seduce an android?
Oh, well, when I'm not doing that, you can find me here in the network where I am co-hosting Union Federation. You can find me on our Discord server and in our Facebook group. That's where you can find me. And Kelvin, when you are drawing a line here and no further, where can people find you?
You can find me in the BQN Collective on Facebook, or you can come directly for me on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline. And Kristin, where can people find you when you're not giving people pleasure for 0.68 seconds?
Whoa.
Justin can tell you all about that. You honestly, not a lot of places these days. I'm going through a bit of a social media hiatus and purge, seeing if it improves the mentals. So,
find
Reddit,
you here at All Good Things.
Find me here. There we go. The best, if you want to chat, I'm on Reddit. I occasionally will check my Instagram direct messages. I don't really, as you guys know, and I apologize, I don't check my Facebook Messenger or anything like that anymore. I'm usually surrounded by a book and some cats. So
nice.
It brings a lot of inner peace, I will say. But Christos, where can people find you when you're not breaking your little ships?
I love breaking my little ships. You can find me here on the network at the BQN Collective on Facebook, our Discord server, or over on Instagram at What's the T-Bev.
You'll never hear a commercial here on BQN. And if you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can watch raw, uncut versions of this very podcast, or you can join our reaction shows, script readings, and enjoy our special patron-only shows of It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving a star rating and written review. That helps others find the show and builds our little community of awesome listeners.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producer, JJ Seastrom. Got a Christmas card from him the other day.
Oh, wasn't it so
cute.
beautiful?
I loved it. I loved it too. So thank you, JJ. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and to Kelvin for our artwork each and every week.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us
as we search out
all good things.